Shalom. Shalom. Oh, you guys are great. See, already. You're fine. Got another one for you. Boker Tov. Boker Tov. Perfect. Friends, before I actually begin my sermon, we're going to do a little show and tell. There are numerous explanations behind the symbolism of, this is called matzah. Oh, you guys are good. One is historical. Passover is, of course, a commemoration of the Exodus from Egypt. And the biblical narrative relates that the Israelites left in such haste that they could not wait for their bread to rise. And this bread, when baked, was matzah. And friends, after eating this for 8 days, you will see why it's called the bread of affliction. The other reason for eating matzah is symbolic. On the one hand, matzah symbolizes redemption and freedom, but it is also lechem oni, literally the bread of affliction. Thus, it serves as a reminder to the Jewish people and for all people to be humble, not to forget what life was like in servitude, never to take freedom for granted. And I always say, lamrot hakol, in spite of it all, the United States is the greatest place on earth to live. Never take it for granted. Eating the bread of affliction for the Jewish people is both a lesson in humility and enhances our appreciation of freedom. Another explanation is that matzah has been used to replace the Paschal offering that was made before the destruction of the temple by the Romans in the year 70 of the Common Era. So for us, the matzah is also a symbol of salvation, but the salvation that comes when there will be peace in the world for all of us. And there goes my sermon. That might be a harbinger or a sign. Throw it away, Rabbi. Dear friends, it is a great honor, a joy, and a privilege to have been asked to preach at this beautiful and historical church this morning, and to share the bima, this is the Hebrew word for altar, with your superb and dedicated clergy, Reverend Albert Ogle Joy, and what could be a better name than Reverend Joy, and Reverend Cameron Hardy. Most often I give sermons which are obvious and trite and banal. And when I do that, I suggest you listen very hard, because it is the most obvious truths in life that we tend to overlook. So this morning, I want to give that kind of sermon, typical of me, one that is trite, obvious, banal, and maybe even a little bit profound. It consists of a simple story that I learned from an author, Sarah Yocheved Rigler, and it's the story of what she calls her Dayenu ring. Remember this word, Dayenu? It will save you this morning. So here is Sarah's story. Quote, "The diamond ring that I inherited from my mother of blessed memory is, or should I say, my most beautiful possession. My father had given this ring, a band of 16 perfect diamonds, to my mother shortly after their wedding in 1944. It was precious to me emotionally and materially, and so this ring adorned my hand every single Shabbat. Every time I looked at it, my Sabbath joy increased. And then sitting at the Sabbath table 6 weeks ago, I glanced down at my ring and was horrified to see a gaping black hole. A prong of the white gold setting had broken, and one diamond had fallen out. My horror gave way to a frantic search, with all members of the family on their hands and knees, searching the floors in the kitchen and the dining room, then sweeping and finally giving up. That diamond was gone. Every time I looked at my ring, all I saw was the gaping black hole, like a beautiful woman smiling to reveal a missing front tooth. My gorgeous ring had become a toothless hag. Bitterly, I took it off and put it in its box. I could not bear to look at it. So replacing the diamond would be an expensive and a complicated procedure, as the setting itself would also have to be repaired. We were not just then in a position to undertake the expenses. And so the ring remained in its place of exile every Sabbath, and whenever by force of habit I reached for it, I was reminded of my bitter loss. And then one Friday, 2 weeks ago, I missed the ring so much that I decided to take it and wear it. After all, I reminded myself, there were still 15 perfect diamonds there for me to enjoy. Why focus on what was not there when I could focus on what was there? A ring is round, I told myself, and whenever the black hole faces me, all I have to do is turn it to reveal the still perfect other side. This turned out to be a powerful spiritual experience. Whenever I glanced down and saw the ugly hole, I said to myself, I will choose what I look at and what I won't look at. And I turned the ring around until I saw sparkling, perfect diamonds. And then something strange happened. At one point, I looked down and saw the gaping hole, and instead of turning the ring, I chose by an act of will to look at the diamond adjacent to the hole. I gazed at it intently, noticing its clear, almost blue color, its exquisite cut, and its happy sparkle. Then I realized with a start that in the 15 years I have owned this ring, while I loved the ring as a whole, I had never really bothered to look at the individual diamonds. Losing one diamond made me begin to appreciate the beauty of the remaining diamonds. That's the story. As Harry Jochebed Rigler tells it, she lost one diamond out of her ring, and at first the ring seemed deformed as a result. And then eventually she began to realize that the other 15 diamonds in the ring were still beautiful. And so she learned to appreciate each one that she still had, instead of brooding over the one that she had lost. And then she goes on to reflect on the lesson she has learned from this experience. She says there is one song that everyone at the Passover Seder, and I know all of you will be coming to the Passover Seder next Sunday at 4 o'clock, knows very well. It is the song Dayenu. Everyone, or at least every Jew, loves this song, and I hope you will too by 10:15. Everyone loves the song because the melody is so simple and so joyous. People love to pound the table as they sing it, and yes, you have my permission to pound the pew in front of you as I sing it, not the person in front of you. And they belt out the refrain with great enthusiasm. But we seldom pause to think about the meaning of the words that Jews throughout the world are singing. If we did, we might find them a bit strange. There are 15 verses of Dayenu, and it enumerates the 15 favors that God did for us when we left Egypt. He took us out of Egypt, split the Red Sea for us, took us on dry land, brought us to Mount Sinai, etc., etc. The word dayenu means enough. It would have been enough. And the idea is that if God had just done one of these wonders for us, dayenu would have been enough. But if you think about it, is it really true? If God had led us through the sea and then the Egyptians had slaughtered us, would that have been enough? If God had brought us to Mount Sinai and not given us the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, would that have been enough? What sense does it make for us to say that any one of these wonders would have been enough? Does that make sense? Sarah Rigler says that the song teaches the same lesson that her no longer perfect diamond ring teaches. Stop and notice the greatness and the joy of each and every part. The splitting of the Red Sea was a tremendous event. If you're my age, which is older than dirt, I still remember Yul Brynner pursuing Charlton Heston and the Israelites. Thanks to Cecil B. DeMille, Red Sea split. But the splitting of the Red Sea was an incredible event. Appreciate it for what it was, in and of itself, before you go to another wonder. The Torah, she says, requires us to remember the going out from Egypt all the days of our lives. Why? Because such remembrance leads to gratitude, which is the core characteristic of the Jewish people, and I suggest to Episcopalians as well. You know, the very name Jew comes from the Hebrew word Yehudah, Judah, which means thank you. Modeh, which comes from Judah, means thank you. Modeh, I thank you. In the midst of the Seder, which is a program that consists of 15 steps, interestingly, the song Dayenu teaches us how to achieve the virtue of gratitude. Focus, focus, focus on each individual blessing that you are given in life, regardless of what came before it or after it. Each blessing, as she puts it, is a standalone gift, just as every diamond in the ring is a treasure in and of itself. And that's the whole story, friends, from Sarah Yocheved Rigler. So what do you think of it? Do you like it as much as I do? I hope so. Because the truth that it contains is obvious and trite, and therefore we need to pay attention to it and take its lesson to heart. So I want you to look around the Seder next Sunday afternoon, and we have a few choice tickets still available. And what do you see? I know some people who look around the Seder will get aggravated. They say to themselves, look at that son of mine. How dare he come to the Seder table looking like that? How can he wear his hair so long that it reaches down to his shoulders? And why isn't he wearing a tie as he should? You can look at a child, your son, that way if you want to. And if you do, all you will get from the Seder is heartburn, and it won't be from the brisket. But look at him another way. If you can, look at him and say, Dank Gott. Thank God. Thank God that he came. It isn't easy to travel these days. Planes are so expensive and frustrating, and yet he came all this way in order to be with us at the Seder. I'm so fortunate to have him here. I'm not going to say a single word about how he looks. After Pesach, maybe I'll drop a hint about how the barber misses him, but not tonight. Tonight I'm just going to be happy that he's here. Look at your child that way, and if you do, you'll have much to be thankful for at this Seder. Look at your watch during the Seder, and you'll worry about whether the meal will be burned by the time you get it. If you want to, look at your watch every few minutes and see that it has hardly moved. And when is Rabbi Haddon going to stop anyway? And groan inwardly that the Seder is taking too long, the sermon's taking too long, that the leader is explaining each and every word and wish that he would move along already. Look at the Seder that way, and if you do, you will have very little pleasure next week at the Seder. But look at the Seder differently, if you can. Look at how much time I, in this case, and your ministers, the other 51 weeks per year, have spent preparing today, and be grateful for that. This service doesn't just happen. It happens because of the commitment and the dedication and the love and the talent of this incredible organist and these two beautiful clergy. So next week, look at the Seder that way, and you'll feel privileged and proud to be there. Believe me, folks, most of you, the meal's going to be okay, but most of you, thank God, most of you can afford to go to the Four Seasons or Le Bernardin or Madison Park if you get hungry Monday afternoon. But look around at the table and see who's missing this year. See who you wish could be there and who has left us and gone the way of all flesh. And when you do that, you can't be blamed if a tear flows down your cheek because you miss them so much. You're entitled to feel the pain of the absence of those who are no longer with us. So the lesson that I would have us learn from Sarah Rigler's Dayenu ring is that the choice is ours. There will always be things missing in our lives. There will always be people missing in our lives. There will always be an empty plate at every meal. But if we are lucky, it will only be one of 15 diamonds in the ring. If we are not so fortunate, it will be someone and not something that you will be missing. But either way, we have the choice. We can focus on the one thing in our lives that is missing, or we can focus on all the blessings in our lives that are still here. And I have to tell you, folks, as a survivor of open heart surgery, I always tell my friends I am vertical, taking food by mouth. And if you look at me, a lot of food by mouth. But I feel so blessed. You know why? I'm an on-staff chaplain at Danbury Hospital. I see people who can't swallow. I love swallowing. Unfortunately, ribs, pizza, hot dogs, French fries. But what a great gift to be able to swallow, to be able to eat. So sometimes you really can't help yourself. If you have 31 teeth that are in good working order and one that is giving you excruciating pain, your mind will focus on the one painful tooth, and understandably so. The 31 teeth that work are of no interest to you when you can only think of the pain of the defective tooth. But sometimes in life, in fact, most of the time, guess what? We have a choice. Sometimes we can pause and pay attention to all the things in our lives that are working well, and we can give a silent word of thanks and praise and gratitude to God for them, instead of wallowing in pity over the things in our lives that are causing us pain. Sometimes we can say, Dayenu, it's enough, with a full and happy heart for the blessings in our lives that we should not ever, ever take for granted. So 2 things I wish for you this morning. One is that we have many, many blessings in our lives. And the other one is, may you all have the wisdom to appreciate each and every blessing because it's Dayenu. It's enough. And to this, let us all say, Dayenu. Amen. And friends, the job of a rabbi is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. So now that you're all comfortable, God, I say that line all the time. It always works. Take out your sheets. Today you will be making your Dayenu debut in Millbrook, New York. Now, I'm going to try to negotiate the Hebrew. If some of you want to join with me, you can on the verses, which I kind of put in dark print. but your part will be, this is very, honey, there's somebody over there who wants to sing, I know that. The words are da, da, yenu, da, da, yenu, da, da, yenu, da, yenu, da, yenu. One more time. You guys are very smart. I know you can handle this. Da, da, yenu, da, da, yenu, da, da, yenu, da, yenu, da, yenu. Goes like this. Ilu Hotzianu, mi Mitzrayim, Hotzianu, mi Mitzrayim, da, yenu. Your turn. Da, da, yenu, da, da, yenu, da, da, yenu, da, yenu, da, yenu, da, yenu, da, da, yenu, da, da, yenu, da, da, yenu, da, yenu, da, yenu. I got to tell you, I did this for the Methodist Church last week. You guys are much better. Ilu natan lanu eta Torah da yenu. Da da yenu, da da yenu, da da yenu, da yenu, da yenu, da yenu, da da yenu, da da yenu, da da yenu, da yenu, da yenu. Had God given us Shabbat, would have been enough for us. Ilu natan lanu eta Shabbat eta Shabbat da yenu. Da da yenu, da da yenu, da da yenu, da yenu, da yenu, da yenu, da da yenu, da da yenu, da da yenu, da yenu, da yenu. And here's the verse that separates the men from the boys. Had God taken us into the land of Israel, would have been enough. Ilu hichni sanu le'eretz Yisrael, da yenu. Da da yenu, da da yenu, da da yenu, da yenu, da yenu, da yenu, da da yenu, da da yenu, da da yenu, da yenu, da yenu.